I am going to do something risky. I am going to talk about the Irish flag right here on the internet.
Fun with flags, oh say, can you see? It's fun with flags, fun with flags.
And while I am indeed a fallible auteur, I will endeavour to tell you all about it with neutrality, which interestingly enough is where the story of the current Irish flag begins. This is the Irish flag you probably know. Green, white and orange. I sound like a children's teacher, don't I? I'll stop doing that. But the infamous tricolour is not Ireland's first flag. In fact, it's kind of just a compromise. A peace pause, you might say. I came up with that all by myself. Think of it how at the family barbecue, Uncle Pat and Uncle Mike can't agree on how to cook the ribs and eventually they come to a truce. Most folks are hopeful, but everyone's simultaneously feeling a little bit cautious about how the ribs are going to turn out. What if both parties don't play ball? I mean, in that case, it'll probably just end up with sticky ribs, which is a good metaphor in a way. But where our story begins today is with the flag that came before the tricolour and the Irish identity that is inherently sewn into it. See, before the Irish flag that you know and hopefully love, there fluttered another one among our streets, and it was pretty cool too. It was a harp, a golden harp. The harp is ancient. It's actually been Ireland's emblem since around the 13th century. The harp itself dates from around the 1600s when it began appearing on Irish regimental banners under English rule. It became the flag of the Kingdom of Ireland under English monarchy from 1542 until the 1801 Act of Union. That's when Ireland's flag was merged into the Union Jack. Well, actually, no it wasn't. See, no harp. In its place, they added the red saltire for St. Patrick, the patron saint of Ireland, which, if we're honest, it kind of all put together looks a bit like the X Factor logo. But the harp flag actually stuck around. It was on medieval coins, stamped on royal seals, and later printed on Guinness pints, which, as you know, are sacred in themselves. And yes, a brewery company does own part of our national identity in a way. Technically, Guinness leapfrogged the Irish government for copyright of the logo. They've trademarked the harp as a logo before the Irish government ever got around to it. So when we raise a pint, we're not just toasting sláinte, we're also technically involved in some moral copyright infringement. But here's the rub. The harp wasn't just pretty. It was Ireland's quiet claim to we've actually been here forever. Long before flags turned into battle cries. The harp wasn't random. It was a symbol of our creativity and our sovereignty. It told a truth about our country which cherished poetry and storytelling and still does today. It's just kind of done a little bit differently, usually over a few points. But I mean, look at how many creatives there are around the world known globally that are from Ireland. Singers, actors, filmmakers. We love our creativity. And it's worth remembering that the harp logo became an emblem long after Ireland was invaded by the Anglo-Normans in 1169. Everybody invaded us, the whole world. So part of its meaning was resistance. It was a quiet cultural rebellion long before there was ever a political one. It's actually connected to Brian Boru, the last High King of Ireland, whose legendary harp sits in Trinity College today, my alma mater. That exact harp inspired both our official state emblem and Guinness's logo. So if you think about it, our national symbol and our national drink are kind of playing the same tune. Oh. The harp flag was elegant and regal. Less rebellion, more resistance. It stood for identity through creativity. But by the 1840s, we were tired. You know, all the invasion.
Want? Take. Have.
Do you know how many different groups invaded us? Like I said, everybody. And that was mixed in with the whole English and famine thing. We were tired, and rightfully so. Oh, and you know, in the whole famine thing, I really do get the impression that you guys think it's just all about how the crops died. If you want a whole video on that, let me know below in comments. Oh, while you're down there, do subscribe, or you're gonna get an eyelash in your eyeball. Anyway, by the mid-1800s, the famine thing, the English thing, all the invasions thing, along with that came uprisings and seeds of rebellion. Ireland was ready to trade poetry for politics. Enter Thomas Francis Maher, a young Irish revolutionary who didn't design Ireland's flag but introduced it. The tricolour was gifted to him by a group of French women sympathetic to the Irish cause. It was inspired by their own revolution's flag, and Thomas basically thought, we can do that. I don't know why he'd be French, he was Irish. In 1848, he presented his new design in Waterford. Green, white and orange, each stripe representing something deep. Green for the Catholics and nationalists, Those were people who wanted Ireland as one nation ruled by its own people. Orange for Protestants and Unionists, folks who were happy to live with British rule and wanted it to stay that way. For context, the orange was because they were followers of a man called William of Orange, but that's a story for another day. And white goes in the middle, symbolising peace between them. That's nice. So yes, Ireland's main flag is basically a peace treaty. It was a wildly optimistic idea, considering the 1840s were not such a calm decade, shall we say. Understatement much. But it was beautiful in its intent. Maher was part of the Young Ireland movement. I think it's fair to say they were a group of idealists, very much inspired by the French revolutions. Endless revolutions. They had a lot of revolutions. This posse believed symbols could spark unity and inspire people and create a movement. A lot like how these days we have like hashtags and everybody posts the same profile photo to say you're making a statement about something. It's all very we can change the world, which is lovely. But, well, spoiler, they lasted about 3 days before Maher was arrested. But their PR and branding was on point. The flag first flew publicly in Waterford City Hall by a group of women inspired by the movement. And even though Maher was exiled to Tasmania, tough crowd, his tricolour actually survived. But at that time it was mostly kind of among fringe groups. The Union Jack flag was still the main one used, and unofficially the harp one. But the tricolour reappeared during the 1916 Rising, raised high above the GPO, the General Post Office in Dublin city centre. They're talking about making that into a mall, which is... we definitely need more malls. It resurfaced during the War of Independence a couple of years later. And by the time most of Ireland gained independence in the early 1920s, it had become the de facto emblem of the new state. Fun fact though, it didn't actually become the official flag until the 1937 Constitution changed everything. That was nearly 2 decades later. So for like 20 years, Ireland was flying this kind of unofficial maybe flag. We all love a bit of commitment phobia. Just me? Okay, moving on. On paper, it's really simple. Green plus white plus orange equals a symbol of peace from both sides. In practice, it's actually more of a peace pause, a symbol that became even more relevant after the Good Friday Agreement in 1998. At that time, both sides agreed to pause the fight and live in a shared, imperfect peace for the time being. But as with all things, the tricolour can mean different things depending on who's holding it. To some, it's a symbol of unity. To others, it's a sign of oncoming rebellion. And to anyone working in customer service on St. Patrick's Day, it's a sign of absolute chaos. There are even places on the island of Ireland where if you fly the tricolour, you can cause tension. I'm forever telling you guys on this channel that Irish people, and by that I mean people from both the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland, the island of Ireland, are very, very difficult to offend. Mostly because we rip the piss out of ourselves first. We laugh at everything and don't take ourselves too seriously. But on this one point, the division is still one thing that's a very touchy subject in Ireland. Because with the pause of it all, it's a subject that needs to be handled delicately by people who are very familiar with the history and the conversation around it.
But I know everything about everything.
And that's why we have the white bit of the flag, the sh of it all, for now. But that doesn't make it cynical, it actually makes it really human. Personally, I think the flag is still a symbol that's very aspirational. The green and the orange are still there, hoping that one day we won't need the white to mediate. They'll be together, but not mixed, because that would make brown. And I don't think that would make the cutest flag. But of course, we can't even agree on the shades. See, most people do say orange, but some people say gold. And then people be arguing over green or emerald. The politicization of even a Pantone chart. Every nation's flag is basically its logo. A message to the world about its identity. America, of course, has the infamous stars and stripes. Canada has the maple leaf, which symbolizes strength and pride. And Ireland's flag says we're working on it, but there's magic behind that too. Because the tricolour actually works. It's a sign of hope for what's to come. It's instantly recognisable, except when we mix it up with the one for the Ivory Coast, which I have done when searching for emojis. It's probably the only flag that's been wrapped around both an Olympic athlete and an inflatable leprechaun within the same 10 minutes. Please pull up a chair. While it's not original in itself because of the French backstory, it is something that's uniquely Irish in its mutual understanding of compromise and its honesty. So what's happened to the Irish harp flag? Well, actually it's still very much around. Ta-da! Oh, and the Irish presidential seal still clings to the harp on blue logo. It's still on all our coins too. We're still flying 2 national symbols at once, which is pretty cool. So even though the harp flag took a step back, it's never actually fully retired. The harp represents Ireland's cultural heartbeat. The arts, the language, the storytelling. The tricolour represents the modern republic and the shared hope of unity. Together they tell two sides of the same story. One's poetry, one's paperwork. And that's the beauty of our two flags, really. The harp represents who we are at our core, and the tricolour represents who we could be. Both endure, even though the peace they promise can still feel like a work in progress. And in a way, the story behind the Irish flags relates to how most of us feel on the inside. Our creative selves mixed with the part that's doing its best to keep it all together. And ultimately, we all blow in the wind. Shout out today to a couple of patrons who made this video possible. Today I want to thank my amazing Patreon squad. They are Bill Staley, Captain Dan Doherty, Christopher Martinez, David Wilford, E. Burm, Eric L, S. Jalek Art, Freddie, J. Michael Casano, Jack Heflin, Jeff Morrow, Joseph Mixon, Larry Shepard, Mark D, Michael E. Doherty, Michael Gibson, Michael McEwen, Robert Harold, Sam Fuller, Samira Schmidt, Stories Telling Stories, Tim Donnelly, Tim Gibson, and Travis Thomas. Thank you so much, guys. One of the highlights of my month is having a hangout with you guys and getting your feedback over on Zoom. Good vibes to you all. Thank you so much, guys. That's it for today. See you on the other side. Bye.